fantastic, and I'm sorry it's so crowded. I wish you all had chairs, but I will try to talk fast and we'll take some questions. And I just wanted to come and say hello to all of you. And I know we just wrapped up our legislative session, give you a quick update, see what you had concerns about, see if I could answer any questions that you may have about our state's priorities. And then also I wanted the chance to come and have a conversation face-to-face with all of you about your legislators and just tell you thank you. I want to thank you for sending normal human beings here that know how to make wise decisions and make the best decisions for this state. So they really have been absolutely phenomenal. I'd like to just take 5 seconds, if you don't mind. Let each of them come up here and just introduce themselves, say what district they represent. We've got quite a few of them here. Is that okay if I let them do that? And they can say a little bit of who they are so that you know who represents you when they come to peer and they make the laws that impact this state and impact your family. So let's just line up here. You already met Mary, and you didn't get the chance, though, to say what district you are, Mary, did you? Come on in and we'll run you through it. And this is going to be kind of funny because I'm going to look like a giant next to me. I am not climbing down because I found myself a chair. So here you go. Unless you want the chair, you can tell me. Okay.
Representative Mary Fitzgerald, I represent District 31, which is all of Lawrence County. And I just want to say, isn't she special?
Larry's okay. Yeah. She said Larry's okay
Larry's
too.
Special.
Larry's special in a totally different way. Here you go.
Thank you. Randy Dibert, Senator, District 31, Lawrence County. All the voters in here, I hope are voting this year. I was used to having the governor on the chair because it's like being home with my wife, Lori. She leads the team. And I just want to say thank you to the Lieutenant Governor. His leadership in the Senate keeps that a sound body. His experience there and the leadership we have really makes us effective. And this year was very nice for the cooperation between the two chambers and the governor's office. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, not Scott.
No, Scott gets to talk. There you go.
Scott Odenbach, District 31, here in beautiful Lawrence County. Exciting day. Thank you for coming, Governor, Lieutenant Governor. Just great to see all these great Republicans here in Lawrence County and folks who just care about the issues and the leadership. Yes, my beautiful wife Laura joined me here. Thanks for coming.
Good morning. Gary Kamak, District 29 from downtown Union Center, the home of Lieutenant Governor Larry Roden, and sometimes we know each other a little too well. But I want to thank everyone for coming this morning. It really speaks well of our leadership team of Governor Noem and Lieutenant Governor Roden, and appreciate everybody coming out.
All right.
Welcome, Governor.
Thank you, sir.
To the Governor. I'm Mike Derby, State Representative, District 34, covers West Rapid City. I had the pleasure this year of being the chair of the House Committee on Appropriations, and this year it was a general appropriations bill. It was a House bill, so I was the chair of the Joint Committee on Appropriations, worked closely with the Governor and Commissioner Twilliger, and it was a great year, and I appreciate how smooth it went working with the Senate. And we balanced the budget for the 135th year in a row.
Perfect. You know, there is one senator this year that served Western South Dakota that didn't get the chance to be there for session, and that was Mike Dietrich. Yeah. And he is struggling a lot with his health and struggling with cancer. And I just would like to ask all of you to keep him and his family in your prayers. I know that they need it, and that God has richly blessed them with a lot of joy in the last several days and gotten the chance to spend some time with family. But if you would do that, in fact, let's just pray for him really quick right now, if you'd all bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you and we praise you for the leadership and the service of Mike and his family. And we just ask that you put your hands on him right now and touch his body. Bring him healing and a peace that passes all understanding. Thank you for his service to the state of South Dakota, and help him to know how much we love him and appreciate him. In your name, amen.
Amen.
He left a hole when he couldn't come and serve, and We love him dearly. He represents part of Rapid City as well. But I do want you to know that you had good legislators that got up every day with the right mission and the right heart for the people of South Dakota, and it makes all the difference in the world when you're the governor of this state. You all know a lot about me. I've been your governor now going into my 6th year probably, and it's just been absolutely the biggest blessing of my life. I love this job. I love this job because I love my state, and I get the chance to wake up every single day and make decisions that are best for you. I think that what is important about this legislative session, and as we were looking back at it, was looking at the fact that this was going to be a legislative session that was going to be very different than the ones that we had had previously. Since I've been governor, I was first sworn in January of 2019. And if you remember back to 2019 with me, when I was sworn in, there was a lot of conversation about the fact that I was going to be the first female governor. And I hadn't really thought about it that much, to be honest with you. I've spent my whole life farming, ranching, running businesses, serving in Congress, kind of one of always just a few women in the room, wasn't really that big of a deal. But when I was sworn in, that day they made a whole part of the ceremony in the rotunda about the fact that South Dakota was electing its first female governor on the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote in South Dakota. And it was like a historic event because 100 years before that, women didn't even have the right to vote. And then here we were electing our first governor that was a female. And I remember standing there looking around at the hundreds and hundreds of people and thinking, oh my goodness, this is kind of a big deal. And I better not screw this up. And so I got nervous. I remember standing there by Brian getting nervous for the first time and thinking, well, what am I going to do? And I put my hand on my dad's Bible, raised my right hand, and I made 2 promises. The first one was that I was going to uphold the Constitution of the state of South Dakota, and the second one was that I would uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. And I thought, when I got done taking my oath, I thought, well, I could do that. I mean, that's 2 promises. Who can't keep 2 promises? So I want you to know from the very beginning, what I've done is that every decision starts with those 2 questions. Is this constitutional? We go through the state constitution, we go through the U.S. Constitution. What most of you don't know is that when we go into legislative session, when I put together my budget, I have to propose that in December before session even starts. And every single thing that we fund, we look at it through that viewpoint. Every single bill that comes and is proposed, the governor's office staff, and I have quite a few of my staff with me today because I wanted them to hear from all of you too what your concerns are and things that you think need to be addressed. But they have a bill analysis that they fill out in the governor's office on every single bill that gets proposed. And that bill analysis starts with the question of what happens if this bill becomes law? What happens if this bill doesn't become law? Is this bill constitutional? Does the governor have the authority to do this if what this bill is asking us to do? But at the end of that document that all of my staff fills out on all of those bills, the last question is, what does this mean for the next generation? Which means I don't want my staff looking at any bill and saying, well, this is a really great idea for the next 6 months because it's a great political issue and it's an election year and it gives us something to talk about. I want them to think about what happens if we pass this bill 10 years from now. What does it open the door to 15 years from now that our kids and our grandkids are going to have to live with? So just so that you know that when we talk about the bills we might talk about today, when we talk about budget items, all of them in my staff have gone through that viewpoint. And whether we decide to bring it forward as a proposal, whether we support a bill that a legislator has brought forward, or maybe we don't support it or we watch it, it's based on that bill analysis and then the discussion that we have with our staff and attorneys and different legislators about if it's important for our state or if it isn't important for our state. So, when I went into 2019 and was sworn in, if you remember back, that was the year we got hit with the bomb cyclone. Do you remember that?
Yep.
The entire state flooded. We had 63 of our 66 counties that were declared federal disaster areas. So we spent all of 2019 just putting communities back together, dealing with FEMA and building roads and bridges back and putting in water treatment plants that had been washed out and helping families and businesses get through it. I thought for sure that 2020 was going to be better. And then we got COVID and it wasn't better. But going through that whole process in the next several years after that, what I realized and what I had campaigned on before I became governor was on growing our state. I told you when I asked you if you would give me the privilege of your vote that our state was dying, that our economy was going down, people were leaving our state, our kids did not find the jobs that they wanted here in South Dakota, they were moving to get the careers that they needed, and we needed to turn things around. If we wanted to keep our taxes low and regulations low, we needed to create opportunities here, and that I was going to be a governor that grew our state and helped our businesses be more successful. When we got into COVID and started making decisions and everybody started attacking us for it, we probably could have made the same decisions other states made, but instead we decided to be aggressive and put our foot on the gas and start telling people, you know what? If you want to live somewhere where you can be free, move to South Dakota.
Amen.
And our state Now because of federal dollars that came in during that period, and because of our economy growing, because of businesses moving into this state, because many families have moved into this state, we have done some incredible things together. We have started new businesses, we've expanded businesses that were here, we've set historic revenues in our state, we have paid off our debts, we've helped our universities and our technical schools pay off their bonds early. We built a railroad across the western half of the state. We funded roads and bridges and repaired dams that needed to be repaired for the last 40 years. We have a AAA credit rating. We have the fully funded pension fund. There's only 2 in the country, and we have one of them. We have increased wages in the state by over 30% just since I've been governor. Women-owned businesses are doing better here than they are in any other place in the country. We broke the record for the lowest unemployment rate in the nation this last year, with a low unemployment rate of 1.7%, because everybody in South Dakota gets up in the morning and they work. And they work because they recognize that we were created to serve each other. That is the purpose that God gave us, was to get up and to go out and to serve each other, and then we do better. The thing that is so interesting to me is that while we've had all those benefits and we've seen all those wonderful things, we're also the only state in the country that saw our mental health challenges go down. Our suicide rates declined over the last several years, and we're the only state in the last 2 out of 3 years where our overdoses are declining. So for me, it's a testimony to the fact that when you give people more personal responsibility to make decisions for their families, when you give them the opportunity to protect their constitutional freedoms, that they're happier. That they're happier, that they do better, and that they thrive. Now this year, coming into budget, we recognized that because some of the federal funds were ending, and that because we had such astronomical, we were breaking every record with revenues coming in, we passed last year the largest tax cut in South Dakota history and gave more money back to the people that live in this state, that we were going to have more of a normal budget year than probably one that we hadn't seen for 3 or 4 years. So I wanted to use this legislative session as an opportunity to educate some of the newer legislators that maybe hadn't served very long, maybe they were brand new, but also the people in this state about what really the role of government is in your life. I'm a big believer that the government is not the answer to everything in your life. Sometimes people ask the government to do things they shouldn't be asking the government to do. So we went back to the Constitution and looked at what our responsibilities are. When I put the budget together, we have 3 big things that the state government is responsible to fund. Number 1 is providers. People who take care of people who can't take care of themselves. That may be people who have developmental challenges, mental health challenges, maybe they're nursing homes, assisted livings, CSP, which are community support providers. Those are all those folks that can't take care of themselves. The state has a responsibility to take care of those providers and give them reimbursement rates that help them make sure that they can do that job and do it very well. The second one is education. We have a responsibility to make sure that our kids in our K-12 system get a public education that is a great education, and that it is a free education. They have the chance to learn reading, writing, arithmetic, but also go and learn how to be successful in life, and that is a responsibility that we have. The third one is state employees. You gotta have somebody who runs these agencies and departments and goes out and does the work. And our responsibility is to take care of them as well and make sure that those positions are filled. I'm proud to say we have less state employees now than I did when I first became governor. We became more efficient. We also pay them better because we're competing with private industry, and that we also this year cut $70 million out of the state budget. Every year we keep making sure we're more efficient, we're spending less of your money, we're giving it back to you, but yet the state continues to thrive, and I think that's because we're following conservative principles and we're making sure that we're making the right decisions. So this year, when I proposed my budget, the vast majority of the dollars that I thought we should spend went into those big three because those are our constitutional priorities. That's where it should go. Beyond that, we have to build about $1.5 billion worth of prisons, which is not very fun. One of the very first meetings I had with Governor Dugard was, you gotta get our state servers off the old system because we're jeopardizing people's personal information and our software systems are 50 years out of date, and you gotta build prisons, but they're gonna cost over $1 billion and we haven't done it, and you gotta get that done. And I remember thinking, who wants to be the governor who builds prisons? I mean, nobody wants that to necessarily be their legacy. But I'm so proud of the fact that because we did responsible government and because we helped South Dakota be successful and our businesses have done so well, that when we build these prisons, we're going to build these prisons with no debt whatsoever. We will have saved the money ahead of time and do it in a way that will save taxpayers in the next 25 years. If we had bonded like every other state does, we would have cost taxpayers another $500 million in interest payments if we had borrowed the money. And now when we build these prisons, and they're going to be ones that we can offer counseling programs now, we can train them for jobs so that when they come out of prison, they actually can provide for their families. We're going to give them the opportunity, they can be successful in life. It's going to be an incredible opportunity for us to build facilities that will give people a new start in life that we never had before. And I'm proud of the fact that we did it the right way. We saved the money ahead of time, set a good example for our kids, and then we're going to build facilities that are safe and that treat people like people and give them a chance to have a fresh start in life. So that's been my main priority. I brought a few other bills that were important to me, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. And so I'll just cover those real fast because I know you're already sick of hearing me talk. I'm sick of hearing me talk. But one of them that I brought that was incredibly important to me was teacher salaries. And we have done 27% of increases in funding to schools since I've been governor. That's a lot. It's more than any other governor has ever given to education in dollars before. When I was in the legislature in 2008, I brought a bill that said that we should have a minimum teacher salary in this state. We know that teachers put 4 years into an education, they're passionate about kids, and that they deserve a good wage to take care of their families to do that. In 2008, I'll never forget it. I brought the bill forward. I had every education lobbyist in the Capitol lined up to come testify for it, but when I refused to put more money into it and raise taxes to do it, the morning of that committee testimony, they all showed up and testified against it. They all turned on me overnight, went from being proponents to opponents, and I learned a really quick lesson about how quickly people can become traitors in the Capitol. So I've been working on teacher salaries since then, and this year in my State of the State address I said, you know what, we've given a lot of money to education and it's not getting into the classrooms. And we know nothing turns a kid's life around more than a good teacher, than a teacher that they spend time with and invest in them, and our teachers should be rewarded for that. And this year we passed a comprehensive bill that will make sure that those teacher salaries will go up. There'll be a minimum teacher salary. They will continue to increase according to funding levels, and I'm so proud of that bill and the fact that the legislature supported it, and we finally got that done. It maybe took them about, maybe 8 or 10, 12 years longer than I wanted, but it actually, I think, is a better bill, and it's something that maybe takes a while to talk about and normalize, but I'm very happy that we got that passed. One of my budget priorities was literacy. Our children cannot be successful if they cannot read. And we have falling reading scores. We do better than almost any other state, but we're going to lead the country in an example of teaching our kids how to read, making sure that our teachers have all the skills and the tech and the equipment and curriculum that they need, and we're going to partner with the Board of Regents that the new individuals that go to get trained to become teachers are trained in the method of phonics. You remember phonics? Well, it actually works. It actually worked, and we're going back to phonics. And we're going to start using that as a way to teach our kids so that they can read and be successful and go forward. And we started a teacher apprenticeship program because we've had such a shortage in the state that now we take people that are teachers, aides, or paraprofessionals in so many of our small towns that always wanted to be a teacher, but they couldn't take 4 years out of their life and go to classes and move away and get a degree. We're training them now in their classrooms so they can earn a wage. They don't have to leave their small town. They're going to become certified teacher, and they're going to realize the dream of having their own classroom now. Awesome. And I'm so excited about that. The fact that we have the chance to have people who are invested in that community that are going to get licensed right there while they're teaching kids, and they're going to have the ability to get not only a higher wage and a career, but that they're going to get their own classroom and their own kiddos that they can continue to have a big impact on. So. 2 other bills. One of them has to do with foreign-owned ag land. I think you're all pretty aware that I hate China. So, got a big issue with them. But the reason is because this will mark my 30th year of being involved in ag policy, in farm policy. And I have watched China for 30 years buy up our food supply system. So back 30 years ago, they were buying our fertilizer companies, and all of our fertilizer was coming out of China. They started to buy our chemical companies. Then I saw them come in and buy our processing systems. Most of our meat packing plants are owned by Chinese owned investors or companies. And then we've seen them come in and steal our intellectual property. In fact, you don't know this, but this summer we had Chinese spies here in South Dakota digging up our seed out of fields, stealing our genetics so that they could copy our genetics and take our technology to go back and to proliferate it in their country so they could compete against us and raise more grain without having to put the research and the investment into it that we do to make sure that it's safe for people. Now we are seeing China go in and buy up ag land. In fact, in the last 10 years, we've seen them increase their purchases of ag land by 5,300%. I just don't believe we should let our enemies have our land. I was raised by a dad that said you don't sell land because God's not making any more land. And we certainly don't sell it to countries that hate us. So we passed a bill that named 6 countries that hate us. It includes North Korea and Iran, Russia, Cuba, Venezuela, China, and says we're just not going to let them own our land. And they wouldn't let us buy their land. We're not going to let them buy it here. And for me, what's incredibly powerful about South Dakota is that we have Ellsworth Air Force Base. So I served in Congress and I served on the Armed Services Committee. Ellsworth Air Force Base is the home of the B-1s that have protected this country for the last 50 years. In fact, when those strikes happened in the Middle East a little over a month ago, those were our B-1s that conducted those strikes. Those were our pilots and our airmen that were over there. They sat in those seats for over 36 hours running those missions and dropping those bombs to protect Israel and in retaliation against that terrorist organization that was trying to kill the Jewish people, but also to go out there and perpetuate violence and death. And extinction is what they were doing. And it was our South Dakota guys and our bombers that went out there and protected us.
Yeah.
So here's what's happening at Ellsworth. We also are the home of the MQ-9 Reaper drones. You know that. Those operate every day and conduct missions, but we are the first base in the country to get the B-21 bombers. They will protect this country for the next 50 years. When I was on the Armed Services Committee, we made strategic decisions to move our assets to the middle of the country. And we made those decisions 8 years ago because we knew that China and Russia were conducting surveillance operations on our coastlines. They were using ships and subs to hack into our systems, to steal our data and our information. They were using highly populated cities to hide their nefarious activities, and that we needed to move our national security interests to the middle of the country where there was less people so we could see when there was suspicious activity going on. And Ellsworth was chosen because of where it is and because it was in South Dakota and because we knew that this platform of this bomber was going to be safest right here in South Dakota. Now, I take that responsibility seriously. And I think it's important that we don't let China come in and buy land around Ellsworth. That we don't let our enemies come in and purchase up assets around that, because it matters to us here in South Dakota, but it also matters to this country. Yep. If we lose this country, where else do we go? There is no place better. So we have to be grateful every single day that we are so blessed to live here. I'm so grateful that the legislature supported that bill, passed it this year, that we have the ability to do that, and I've got over a dozen other states that are looking at that bill that say we want to pass that in our state now too. So thank you for passing that piece of legislation. The other bill that I want to chat about is one that has to do with anti-Semitism. It defines what anti-Semitism is, and it also gives examples in statute so that when we have hate crimes happen in our state against the Jewish people and the Jewish community, that we can prosecute them, there will be consequences, and that we won't stand for it. It is the strongest bill in the nation to protect the country of Israel and the Jewish community from hate crimes, and I'm incredibly proud of it. What has shocked me is since I don't even know if the legislators know that, since we signed that into law here in South Dakota, all hell has broken loose. Like Hamas and terrorists and Palestinians have come in and death threats and are threatening us from all over the country and the world because we passed that bill, because we stood with Israel. So I'm okay with that, if you guys are.
Yeah.
But I want you to know.
Yeah.
I literally turned to somebody the other day when we learned about how bad it was getting, and I turned to somebody and said, they do realize that they're God's chosen people, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, that it's kind of a no-brainer that you would stand with Israel, and they're our greatest ally in the Middle East, too, as well. And that all we're doing is protecting them from hate crimes and giving them the opportunity to live a life to where they don't have to face extinction or prosecution, especially in our universities or some of our cities like they're seeing today. So those bills were big bills that passed this year that are making a big statement, not just for South Dakota, and reminding us of what our values are, what our responsibilities are, but because South Dakota is the first state in the country to go into legislative session every year, we're also the first one to go out of legislative session every year. Which means when something gets discussed during our session and gets talked about and a bill gets brought forward, it's usually the first time that topic is at a hearing. That somebody has brought forward information, had debate, brought opposition. Every other state watches South Dakota's legislators. They watch them and what they say and what they do because they're learning. And our legislators are teaching people across the country about these issues, and then they copy us, which I guess is okay. Because what we do is extremely responsible and well thought out and transparent. And when we pass a bill, and when we kill a bill, and when we balance a budget, and they all recognize that, and we're the first ones every single year to do it, and they say, we want to be like South Dakota, I'm okay like that. I think every state should be like South Dakota, and I think that's a wonderful thing. So you just need to know that your legislators, when they're debating something, it may sound like it's controversial. It may be like, why are they talking about this? Well, it's because we always have to be first. It's the timing of the calendar. It's how we run our legislative session, and I think it's pretty important. Now, there was a little bit of discussion about other topics, such as pipelines and all that kind of stuff, and I'm joking with you. There was a lot of conversation about pipelines and other issues, but I know that we also had some other conversations on other bills in the timber industry that were incredibly important out here to the Black Hills, and so we can talk about that too. There was a proposal to send millions of dollars out to the timber industry in the Black Hills. What I want you to know is that my commitment has been, and what has been to the legislators here, and especially to Representative Derby, that I am going to work with him. We are committing state employees to work with landowners to conduct lumber contracts to keep our lumber industry going, because the federal government sucks. And they are failing us, and they are not getting their promises. And so I've got state employees that are going to be working with private landowners to make sure that we are logging and maintaining this beautiful forest that we're responsible for until they get their act together, or they get a new president that actually wakes up and knows what he's doing. So, all right, so we can do that. And with that, let me open up to questions, because then I'm gonna go probably try to. The first gentleman loves you guys, but I think he likes basketball games a little bit more, because he had some basketball games today, but he wanted me to tell you all hello. So there's a question in the back. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for your first comments.
Good.
Robert Christian with the South Dakota Christian Association and the Black Hills.
Wonderful. We're going to keep you busy hauling logs. That's what we need.
Thanks for the send your letter to, and you're the other 5 governors to the letter to.
So I have met with Secretary Vilsack. This is talking about the timber industry. Secretary Vilsack is the Secretary of Ag under President Biden. He was also the Secretary of Ag under President Obama. So when I was in Congress, I worked with him a lot on farm bills and worked on, conservation and different things. I've been working with him a lot to try to get him to see things my way. He's been a little bit difficult, and the Forest Service has not kept the promises to us in South Dakota that they said that they would, so I will continue those conversations. The White House refuses to meet with me, so I'm not sure why that is, but Secretary Vilsack does, and our delegation is helping too, so I'm working with other members of the House and the Senate, and we're going to keep the pressure on for them to fix. What they've done is they've cut our forest contracts in half, which doesn't sustain the lumber industry in the Black Hills, and to be honest with you, we're the only place in the country left that has a timber industry, that still has a thriving industry, and meanwhile we're importing a lot of our lumber from Canada and other countries while we overgrow our forests and create a dangerous situation for people to live in. And we have one of the most populated forests in the country that needs to be maintained to create a public safety issue that can keep you all safe as well too. So we're getting some traction, and we'll just go around them until we get somebody that's a little bit brighter.
Yeah.
What else? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, Governor, I would love to just thank you for being the greatest governor in the whole country. In our country and our state and our citizens. And thank you too for being just a shining example of what a tremendous, smart, independent woman that every single girl can become if she's educated with. Going to the prison issue. So I moved to South Dakota in 2000, and this month actually I'll have 24 years of being drug free. And my friend Victoria is.
That's amazing. You're kidding me.
We feel that one of the things in South Dakota that we're kind of lacking is treatment centers, like a really good, comprehensive, and especially on this side of the state, some really good treatment centers that can counsel and help people with drugs. And maybe that could be something you could consider also.
Yeah, so one of the things she's talking about are treatment centers for people with addiction.
Yeah.
One of the things that you don't know is that probably in my women's prison, over 90% of the women that are there strictly for an addiction issue. So it's not that they committed another crime or that they went out and were committing violent acts. It's that they were addicted, they had possession, or somebody had been pressuring them and forcing them to be delivering or dealing, but it was 9 times out of 10 not of their own will. They were scared for their children's lives or scared for themselves. Even in the men's prison, I would say 80% of those folks in the men's prison, it started with addiction. And maybe they committed a violent crime after that, but addiction's a huge issue, and we have very limited opportunities to give them any treatment while they're incarcerated. But even outside of incarceration, we have no place to refer them to, because I just don't believe it's the best thing to lock someone in a cell and think they're going to become better and unaddicted just by locking them up for a while. They need some help and some counseling and some tools that they can utilize to move forward and to take care of their families, and they need mentors. And so I have funded, and we have in the past, over $30 million worth of grants to treatment centers. I also fully funded a treatment center on the Rosebud tribal reservation for several years until they just couldn't keep it accredited, and we couldn't do any more to support them because they were being difficult, to say the least. But we will continue to do that and to create situations where we're offering opportunities for treatment, because I'm just a big believer that people need a second chance in life. And I have people, you guys don't know this, I don't talk about it very much, but every month I probably get 20 to 30 people that ask for pardons. People like you that maybe have something on their record that in the background where they were using or something happened and it maybe was 20 years ago or 15 years ago. You have no idea how that limits their ability to take care of their families. They can't get a job in the financial services industry. They can't get a job In certain areas, somebody sees something on their record and they don't want them working for them even though they've been sober for many years. And so we get the opportunity every day to give people a fresh start, but they're not ever going to get that fresh start if we don't give them a toolkit of things that they can use to really help them live a life that helps them be sober. And we have alternative courts here in South Dakota that allow people to, instead of going to jail, go through a program. They're fantastic, but I need judges to refer people to them. So I'm working really hard with the Chief Justice to educate judges on referring people to alternative courts, drug treatment courts, alcohol courts, veterans courts, so that they can go through that program. I stood at a graduation ceremony the other day and had a dad that was in his 60s that had just graduated, and his kids were there, and his kid said, his kid was probably 30 years old, and said, "This is the first time in my life I've been proud of my dad." And it broke my heart.
Wow.
But it was such a special moment. Yes, yes. So,
She's an awesome person. Would you
yes.
like to say
Well,
something?
there you go. Everybody needs somebody to stand alone. Through at the fact that he finally made his son proud. We should create more situations like that. Who else had a question? Right here? Yes.
I'm Sandy Aldrich. Thank you for coming. I'm a 73-year-old old lady retired, and I was very sad when they did not stop the food tax.
Yes, me too.
Because, well, most of us know that it's gotten higher and higher and higher to live.
Yeah.
And is there any chance that might come up again? That they might? I mean,
There's a very good chance that the repeal of the grocery sales tax will be on the ballot. My concern with how it's written is that it'll repeal the tax on booze and cigarettes and on everything else. The way that it's written, it's very expansive. And I don't know if everybody in this room would agree that all those taxes should be repealed. They just want their groceries. They want every family to be able to go and buy groceries. I go about once every week or two and run a checkout line at a grocery store. Just because I think it's good for me to sit there. I can talk to people, and some people don't have any idea who I am, but it's good for me to see how much stuff costs and what it's doing. And you guys, you wouldn't believe it, 1 out of 3 people goes and puts something back. Now, you know, most of the time, I would say those of us in this room, if we got to go get bread, milk, and eggs, and olives, and ketchup, or whatever, we just go get it. But 1 out of 3 of those people are sitting there looking at items, and they're shocked by how much the bill is, and they're realizing they don't have that much money, and they're looking at stuff, making a decision on what they're going to go put back on the shelf. And that's not something that's gotten better in the last 2 years. So right now, the polling in South Dakota says that that repeal is going to pass, because people are hurting, and then the state will have to figure out what they're going to do as far as figuring out what gets taxed and what doesn't as a result of that being on the ballot. I'm not sure it'll get on the ballot, how it'll be written, and all those kinds of things. Ian probably knows more than I do, but I was the one who brought the repeal on it, because for me it was more important that we give a tax cut to South Dakotans and than we do the people who come and visit us. I love that people come and visit us, but what the legislature decided to do was to reduce the overall sales tax. But that meant everybody who comes and visits us and spends their money, they got a reduction in tax too, and that's fine. I care more about you guys than I do them, and I just felt like people who live here and buy their groceries should get the tax cut rather than just everybody who comes into the state. But I didn't win that argument, and they ended up lowering the sales tax, which was good. It was a tax cut, but that's not going away. Yes, ma'am.
With regards to that,
Yes.
I'm in the tourism industry.
Yep.
My people pay 4.2 whatever.
Yep.
And then they pay a tourism tax.
Yep.
We have $4 billion according to the revenue in tourist income. Why are we not increasing the tourism tax to help offset some of that? And then also, when you're talking about a 73-year retiree, our property taxes are out of control. There is no consistency. And there are people in this room that voted it down. He's over there somewhere. And I'm sorry. My taxes have got quadrupled in 3 years.
Is this your home?
This is my
Yeah.
home. Well, it's my home.
Yeah.
It's my business.
Oh, no, but some people, yeah, okay.
It's everything is going up. Property taxes are going up. Homeowners insurance, car insurance, everything's going up. And yet we want to bring down taxes. Well, I understand needing to balance things, but we are not looking at the big picture. We could be increasing the tourism tax. We are 9th from the bottom in sales tax in the nation at 4 point whatever until July. The highest in the nation is like 7 point whatever. 8, yeah. Most people around the nation, even when they come to visit us, are expecting at least 8% sales tax. Yeah, they get here and they're like, oh my gosh, look how cheap everything is. Well, if you charged a tourism tax, even a 1% increase would net you $40 million.
Can you all hear everything she's saying? Oh, good job. Okay, good.
Sorry,
I'm making sure they're getting to hear everything you say.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we have options. We're not looking at those options. And as far as property taxes, I get that things are going up and we have people coming in, but maybe we should be having the new people that come in and buy a house and they're paying ridiculous amounts of money, and there are people doing that. They have to submit something and their taxes get assessed at that new grayer rate. But we have people in our neighborhood that went from $290,000 in valuations up to over 400 some in 3 years.
And now,
How-
800.
Yeah.
800.
And you could make it so the people that as soon as you sell your house, yeah, that next person's going to realize that higher tax bracket. But for the people that want to retire here, there was an article in a paper where Hill City was upset that they couldn't get people to come into Hill City to retire. Who's going to come into a state that has property taxes out of control? They're not consistent. It's a mess, and we're told we live in a better neighborhood, so we're going to pay higher than them. What is that about? We collectively,
Custer.
Yeah.
you know, we collectively work hard.
You guys drove all the way up here from Custer? Good for you. Well, I'll just say a couple of things. So I'm not the person that's going to stand here and advocate for higher taxes. So when you talk about raising the tourism tax, what's happening so much in the state right now is that all the cities are raising their bed and board and booze taxes. They're all raising what it costs if you rent a hotel room, what it costs if you're going to go stay there. If you look at a bill, if you go stay somewhere, so all those tourists that are coming in, they are spending more money. And we had a big problem out here in the Black Hills during high tourist season, where we had hotels that were charging 2 or 3 times the rate of what they normally do because they knew that they could. So we've got to stop that. We've got to stop where punishing people who want to come in here and visit and spend their money, because tourism is our second largest industry. So it's important that these businesses, these coffee shops and main streets, that we do have people who come and visit, and we don't mind that some of them go home. Because, you know, we talked to them a while and we're like, okay, you don't qualify, but that's the problem when you start talking about raising the tourism tax, is that you look at those people who do come in as tourists. All these cities are taking more taxes, and that all adds up, and we're looking at how bad it's really hitting them and trying to evaluate that. When it comes to property taxes, you are exactly right that we have a problem going on. The first bill that I worked on when I became a legislator in 2006 was property taxes, and spent a whole session working on it, and it was because farmers were being taxed off their land at that time. And we moved to a productivity model that still isn't right, and that's why there's a task force that still continues to adjust it. But we didn't want farmers to be taxed on what something would sell for, because it was taxing them off their land. Instead, it was on what it could produce. So I do know that legislators are working on what would be a way to reform property taxes in a way that would be much more fair, and that wouldn't create these kind of escalations that we're seeing. But it's good to know for discussion, these legislators are not going out and not changing property taxes because they're keeping a bunch of money at the state that they can sell. All your property taxes do stay local. They all go to your schools, and they all go to your counties. So the state doesn't get a dime of property taxes. So one thing that might be helpful is not just talking to legislators, but talk to your county commissioners and your assessors, and go out there and talk to your school districts, because your school districts have hundreds of lobbyists in the Capitol every year asking for more and more money all the time. And it'd be so fantastic if a bunch of parents and community members would show up at a school board meeting once in a while and ask some questions. Because that's the one thing that I would love to do and I've been wanting to do for years, is to have school board members really be trained on what their job is. Because I love school board members. It's probably one of the worst jobs ever, is to be a school board member. So I get it. But they don't really understand that their job is not just to go there and listen to the administrator. That your job is to be a school board member that asks questions, finds out how the money's being spent. Should we be spending $500,000 on a brand new bus when we're paying our teacher $32,000 a year? I don't know. Maybe we should figure out a way that we can advocate for making sure that people that actually send their kids to our school aren't being taxed so much, and we could come together unified to the legislature and say, this is something that we think works and that we're willing to do to help our community be successful. Nobody's done that. All they've done is point fingers at these legislators and say, fix it, but all the people on the take are right here in your community. So go talk to your school districts and go talk to your county commissioners. And your counties come every year and ask for more and more money from the state. And I love my counties, and I want my roads and bridges to be great and all of that, but they're getting the property taxes, and then they come to the state and they ask for more and more money too. I would ask them, just prove to me that you're spending what I give you wisely.
Amen.
That you're spending it wisely and you're spending it on contractors that are actually building a bridge that lasts more than 5 years. Or how many of you have seen a brand new road get built and 2 years later it's all broke up, but you're trying to figure out how'd that guy get that contract? Right? I can't ask all those questions by myself. I would love to. I don't sleep very much right now. My staff wishes I would, because they get really tired of me texting them at 3 in the morning. But that's, I think that part of your focus and frustration on legislators sometimes, is okay to keep, they're well aware, they bring their concerns to me. But boy, if you had counties and schools and people who live here all coming up there and saying, we gotta fix this, and here's some proposals. Remember, these guys don't have staff. They don't have any staff. They don't have people that can go out and talk to assessors and spend hours and hours in county courthouses gathering all that information and figuring all that out. Help them out a little bit. I think that'd be fantastic, and we'd be all on board. And because there's nothing that you said that I disagree with. Not a single thing. You're exactly right. It has to be fixed, but it's not going to get fixed if we keep fighting with each other. We've got to figure that out. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go here. And then I'm probably going to have to be done, and we can maybe go to you if we all go really fast and I don't talk too much. So, there you go.
As far as property taxes go,
Yes.
mine went up 35% in 4 years.
Did it?
So, I mean, put it in simple terms. Right now, it costs me, first of all, to keep raising the assessment.
Yeah.
And I know Nathan, he's on the school board, but they lowered the umbrella levy, but if they raise your assessment by another
Yes.
$30,000-$40,000 a year, it just wipes that out.
Yeah, that's in capital outlay.
But
Yep.
right now, it costs me $200,000 if I live 20 more years to live in my own house.
To live in your own house that you already own and paid for.
Like, I bought a nice house,
Yeah.
that's where I wanted to live.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we got a lot of out-of-state money that comes in here from wherever, because they're running from the coast.
Well, but
they're
we're also, what we're
desperate.
doing is recruiting in to some of the areas, businesses that are also going to start carrying some of that burden, so that it's not, and what we did on the ag land was cap how much it could go up a year. And so those have been some of the discussions that have happened on commercial and homes, so you don't have huge adjustments like you're talking about too. None of those have all been agreed on, but that's been part of the discussions that we need to have, and we need to figure out how that works.
Well, another thing they're doing is they're taxing us on unrealized gain.
Yes, they are. You're right.
Because when you raise that assessment, keep raising that assessment, there's nothing saying that 5 years from now that I'm gonna get the price of the house I'm
Right.
assessed for. But it's a kind of a cheap way to keep hammering the senior citizens.
Right. It is the senior citizens that most of the time, they're living on Social Security, they're living on whatever their pension is, trying to figure out how to pay those taxes.
Couples that move here, they can't afford it.
Okay, I'm gonna keep moving so that I can make sure I get to everybody else. Who had a question right in here? Yes.
Thank you for taking my question. Thank you for doing a wonderful job helping these teachers get more funding. But let's expand on that. The students need funding for the backlog of clearing of IEPs. There are many, many, many students that need IEPs that can't get them.
So why can't they get them?
Bureaucracy.
Is it at the administrative school district level, or is it because
It's,
Cause is it my Department of
it's a
Education?
backlog. You have so many evaluations you have to go through, and it's time.
So
It
it's the
takes
professionals that need to
time.
evaluate the kids and figure
They
out
can't,
what
they
the
can't get the
individual
process
education
done.
plan is something that a lot of kids need, and these kiddos need it, frankly, because in some situations, they're maybe not, they don't have parents at home helping them. They don't have a situation at home, they're maybe living in a crisis, and then the school district's figuring out an individual education plan for them, and they need professionals that have to do that for them. So maybe I need to figure out a way to dedicate more professionals to school districts to help process
I have an
those.
excellent idea because you love bagging groceries.
Uh-huh.
I invite you to attend first grade in Whitewood.
Okay.
My daughter teaches there. She's a fantastic teacher, and she'd love to have you in her classroom.
Oh, okay, well then Ian, remember that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Governor. I've been.
What does USC stand for?
No, USC Film School.
Oh, okay, all right. You're not filming a movie right now, are you? Better not fall off this chair.
I don't have any legs.
Oh, okay, didn't see that. Oh, goodness sakes.
But, for the last 3 years since I was evicted from Michigan, I came out here and I had Medicaid, and the Medicaid was taken away from me here at this state.
Okay.
And for the last 3 years, I've been battling and trying to get that Medicaid back.
Did they say why?
Well, I can, they said.
Like, why did this, because we run the program, the Medicaid dollars come from the federal government, but we run the program.
Exactly. And the reason why is because I am a little bit more functional because I did used to be a stuntman, and I don't fit into their cookie cutter programs.
Huh.
And because I don't need anybody to bathe me and dress me in their program, they've thrown out the baby with the bathwater.
So where's Mac? She's super happy. Mac is right here, and she's my policy chief.
Did I see it?
You two are gonna chat when this is over and let me figure out what's going on there, okay? Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay. Because she's basically Wonder Woman and can figure anything out. And I will. Okay, we'll go fast. Good morning. How are you? I just like your hat. That's why I called on you. So yeah, same.
We're on the same
Yes.
page.
Good.
You talked about how quickly an ally can become a traitor in the Capitol. I think the same thing can happen on the world stage. The question in reference to the ag property bill is why not make it illegal for any foreign country to own any property, ag land or otherwise, in South Dakota?
Well, that's part of the conversation, and if you and I are more aligned on that than I think our legislature was ready to do. So we have to prove we can make this work, and that we're not crippling our ag economy. And I think that because frankly, all of our ag groups opposed the bill, and we finally got them to a comfortable group that because they do trade agreements, they sell commodities, it's our number one industry. We got them super comfortable with where we're at today. We're gonna prove that this works, that we can protect our land and we can still grow our own food in this country, which is a national security issue, by the way. All right? We let China buy up our entire food supply chain. They will control us. If we think a pandemic was scary, wait until they control all of our food. So I'm not saying this is the end of the conversation. I would like to go further. Well, but I need my legislators to be comfortable with it too. And for them, it's just, learning and understanding and studying it. And it's not that they don't care; they care too. It's just that they have a lot of things on their plate and they don't have a staff. And so we try to help make sure we get them all the information they can get. Yes, sir.
160 acres.
Right.
The laws currently, we've had a law in the book for 40 years that limits ownership of all the other countries to 160 acres.
So there is a limit on other countries that can't own more than 160 acres, but there was no enforcement and no reporting. So we didn't know.
Collectively,
Right.
or an individual within that country, or how does that?
Foreign country and investors. But when you have no reporting, you have no idea if that's actually happening, and then you have no consequences if they do buy it. Now we have that. So now we can start and prove that these 6 countries who we know hate us and want to destroy us, and then we can expand that if we need to. Yep. All right, little guy, you're going to be the last one because you're my favorite. So.
Can I get a picture?
Yes, you can get a picture. That's a great way to end. All right.